Introduce our next speaker, who's June Oscar. June is the CEO of Mana Women's Resource Centre in Fitzroy and is a proud Bunaba woman from the remote town of Fitzroy Crossing. June is a champion for Indigenous Australian languages, social justice, women's issues and fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. In 2007, she fought successfully for alcohol restrictions in Fitzroy Crossing. Her focus on Aboriginal children and her determination that we do not sacrifice the health of children for the right to buy full-strength takeaway alcohol made her a role model for all of Australia. In 2011, in an article appearing in The Age and Sydney Morning Herald, June was named as one of the 50 most influential women in the world for her work in improving the lives of those living in remote Aboriginal communities. June is a co-founder of the Yiramalay Wesley Studio School, and in 2012 she was appointed as an ambassador for children and young people by the West Australian Commissioner for Children and Young People, Michelle Scott. In 2013, she was awarded the Order of Australia in the Queen's Birthday Honours. June was the winner of the Westpac and Financial Review 100 Women of Influence in 2013 for social enterprise and not-for-profit category. In 2014, June was awarded the Menzies School of Health Research Medallion for her work in fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. In 2016, June was awarded the Desmond Tutu Fellowship for the Global Reconciliation Foundation from the Global. So please welcome June Oscar. Thank you.
Thank you. Dalangoro manangara balangare. Good morning, everyone. Ngaine Nyanjile, June Oscar, Fitzroy Crossing nenge. Ngaraga ngara dangana wala ngara yanenge. My name's June Oscar, I come from Fitzroy Crossing, and I speak to you in my language, Bonoba. I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the lands of the Gadigal people, and we pay our respects to the traditional custodians, past, present and future. We acknowledge that we gather on this beautiful land of theirs. Thank you to the organisers for your invitation to me to be here today, and I'd like to acknowledge my colleague Angela Needham, who operates our Bayagawi Early Childhood Learning Centre in Fitzroy Crossing, and Angela's here with me to help provide information to this conference on our situation, our dire situation that we're facing with supporting our children in their rights to early years education. So we'll be happy to meet and talk with people after the address this morning. What I want to discuss today is related to the overconsumption of alcohol. But surprisingly, for this conference, it is not directly to do with alcohol. It is about what effective prevention is when it comes to ending alcohol-related harms and how to make this preventative work effective through committed and long-term investment. I think for all of us sitting here today, we know the problems well. Here we have a well-informed scientific audience that would have a comprehensive understanding of the damaging consequences of alcoholism, the chronic illnesses associated with it, and a swathe of poor social indicators, low educational attainment, unemployment, etc. And I'm sure many of you know that alcoholism can affect your entire physiological and neurological growth from the very first moments of your development. I'll talk to this today, the pernicious effects of alcohol on the growing fetus in the womb. It's been an area of work that our whole community has been focused on for a number of years. I know that scientists and researchers like to deal with evidence, questions and hypotheses to explore. So here I go. It is a well-known fact that people across the world in diverse societies like to drink or like to experience forms of intoxication from time to time. My questions today is what has happened in our society for people to drink to excess en masse? How does alcohol overconsumption become a collective phenomenon? And why are we enabling this form of drinking by investing in the crisis and not preventative measures? The what and the how are very important. The social factors, in other words, our context, our history, are essential to consider, because when we do not blame the individual. We do not just focus on individual behavioural change or crisis care and management when it comes to alcohol-related harms. Instead, we look toward systemic changes, changes which improve people's life circumstances and changes which create the groundwork for positive impacts that are both societal-wide and intergenerational. Let me be clear from the outset, we are not born alcoholics. So why do some sectors of society fall into alcoholism? There is increasing evidence to show that inequalities and structural disadvantages lead to alcohol-related harms on a large scale. By structural disadvantage, I mean unequal access to health care, education, governance and decision-making, employment, and what I'll speak to extensively today, a right that occurs at the very start of our life, access to early childhood learning and care, and parenting support and assistance programs. My proposition today is this: the best way to reduce alcohol-related harms is to reduce societal inequality. The best way to reduce societal inequality is to increase societal health and well-being, stability, safety, and the creation of meaningful economies and employment. And the way to do this is to combat inequality in our social service system and civic institutions by ensuring equal access to those very same systems and institutions. This proposition is easier said than done. It demands that we do not respond to crisis, to the immediacy of alcohol-related harms with just crisis care. It demands that we use the evidence to interrogate what interventions and preventions are needed. We are doing precisely this in the remote Fitzroy Valley, an Indigenous domain in the Kimberley of far north Western Australia, where I and Angela have come from today. It is a beautiful and impressive region, both because of its ecological diversity and the strength of the people who live there. Born from the oldest civilization on earth, I am proud to call it home. I'm proud to know that my community has incredible resiliencies and is always prepared to call out injustices, overcome inequality, and better our circumstances for the sake of our children and future generations. You'll see behind me a child who attends Bayagawi. Bayagawi meaning freshwater whipray, which is found in the Fitzroy River. Bayagawi, our early childhood learning and care centre in Fitzroy Crossing, which is operated by us, Maninwandigura Women's Resource Centre. It is the only early childhood centre in a 240-kilometre radius. This child would not have attended Byagawi if current proposed changes to legislation and the way early childhood care is funded by the federal government were in place today. Byagawi wouldn't exist. It wouldn't be financially feasible under proposed government changes to parent and carer fees for early childhood learning and care. What we are doing at Byagawi is breaking the cycles of disadvantage entrenched by ever-growing inequalities across our nation. Byagawi is a vital link in the chain of intergenerational health, well-being and prosperity that we need to foster in this country. When a child is given the best start in life, that child succeeds throughout their life. That positive chain of reaction sounds something like this. Their mother has prenatal and postnatal care. Parents and carers are supported in maternity and parental programs. They can enrol their children in 0 to 5 full-time learning and care. That child will go to school ready, will maintain good attendance throughout their schooling, could go on to higher education, and then can seriously choose to be whatever they want to be. Research shows that children from lower socioeconomic contexts are more likely to have this chain reaction set in motion by early childhood education and care than children from more disadvantaged backgrounds. What this tells us is that early childhood education and care is critical to how children grow and respond to the world and contribute to a healthy and prosperous society. When we believe in this, then children are quite literally our hopes and dreams, our belief in a better humanity. They are our investment for the future, as the image behind me says. There are other unique aspects to what we do. We have developed a culturally secure learning framework that strengthens the values of our Indigenous intergenerational care and responsibility, which weave a cohesive society into being. What Byagawi is ensuring from the beginning of our children's lives is a strong foundation of health, well-being and education. We are providing them with a centre which cultivates a collective determination, resilience and empathy so we can create a rich social fabric that enables and motivates and does not diminish and inhibit any of our talents, capacities and knowledges from our diverse cultural heritages. These centres of learning, which bring together the wealth of Indigenous and Western knowledges, are essential, not only because they strengthen our Indigenous identity, but most importantly, they are simultaneously creating safety and stability in the present and are eliminating harms in the future. Locally appropriate and community-owned early childhood centres are the most effective form of combined crisis intervention and prevention. We cannot afford for changes in policy and legislation to deconstruct their framework. In vulnerable communities like ours, a setback in health, education and care of our children can be disastrous. Once again, we would be left in a disadvantaged position with no structural supports to enable us to overcome inequality. Let me give you some historical and current context to why we are in this disadvantaged position and why the preventative measures I'm describing are critical to combating the collective overconsumption of alcohol. The chronic overconsumption of alcohol is a symptom of years of systemic disadvantage and unresolved trauma. In the Fitzroy Valley, 3,000 people from 5 language groups live in today's 40-odd remote communities. Fitzroy Crossing, where Byagawi is the only town, and is the service hub for these communities. Like Indigenous people throughout Australia, we live with the inherited trauma from invasion and prolonged frontier conflict. In our case, not that long ago, my grandparents' lifetime. We lived as unpaid cattle station workers for 2 to 3 generations until thousands of Aboriginal people from across northern and remote Australia were abruptly evicted by the station masters when Australian law intervened to end the exploitative feudal era and imposed equal wages. Our people were thrown into reserves on the edges of town or concentrated makeshift camps. Fitzroy Crossing's population grew from approximately 100 people to more than 2,000 in a few short years. Living conditions were deplorable, and amidst the peak of the Kimberley's population displacement and the shutting down of Indigenous people's involvement in the pastoral industry, causing large-scale unemployment, the state government amended the Liquor Act to remove all restrictions on Kimberley Aboriginal people's access to alcohol. It was done in the name of reforming discrimination laws, but it happened without any engagement or planning with the people who would be affected most. Systems of work and inclusion in structures of decision-making had marginalised our people, and then sudden access to alcohol became something to do, to socialise over, while also escaping feelings of loss and grief. Since the 1970s, the horrific consequences of alcohol on our community has worsened year after year after year. Over the years, grog tore at our community's social fabric, while our leaders fought for citizenship entitlements and for the recognition of our rights as Indigenous people, connection to country, to our culture, to our languages. Although we achieved great success and we have remained resilient, building from the strength of our remarkable heritage, we still live within the context of trauma. In the year 2005 to 2006, the Fitzroy Valley community had attended 50 funerals. This included 13 suicides. Many deaths were in young people, and most were alcohol-related. The state coroner, Alastair Hope, concluded that alcohol abuse is both a cause and a result of many problems for Aboriginal people in the Kimberley. The problems associated with alcohol abuse are the most obvious and the most pervasive. By 2007, the grog crisis could no longer be ignored. Women concerned for the life of the community rallied to action. With the support of the West Australian Police Commissioner, we imposed statutory restrictions on the sale of full-strength alcohol. The restrictions have now been in place for 9 years. It has made the Valley a calmer, more peaceful place in which to plan for a sustainable societal reconstruction. In 2009, we embarked on Australia's first prevalence study of Foetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorders. Foetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorders, or FASD, are a group of conditions characterised by brain injury that is caused by prenatal exposure to alcohol. We found that 1 in 5 children had one of the Foetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorders, one of the highest prevalence rates in the world. These children have a range of challenging behaviours and unique and complex needs. Overall, these difficult behaviours predisposes these children to school failure, contact with the juvenile justice, and ongoing risks of incarceration. 5 years on, we see children from our cohort involved in petty crime, drug use, and inappropriate sexual behaviours. We know that FASD inhibits a person's ability to assess risks. People with FASD can easily overconsume alcohol and become involved in alcohol-related violence. Without adequate support structures, many of our people end up behind bars unnecessarily. But because we have the evidence, we have been able to act. Bayagawi was purposefully designed and built to respond to the unique and complex needs of children living with FASD and the high prevalence of early life trauma. It provided a centre of collaboration where people from across sectors, health, research and community development, could have a shared response to the evidenced needs of our children, with a particular focus on reducing the alcohol-related harms which impact our children. And in the few short years that we've begun to build our societal-wide prevention model, we are seeing results. We have used the evidence of FASD as a foundation of strength to provide immediate supports to individual children, including in the classroom, and to raise awareness of the harms of alcohol in pregnancies. Midwives are reporting abstinence from alcohol use in pregnancy in young women. Recent research in over 400 people in the Fitzroy Valley showed that all were aware of FASD and its cause. Despite all our efforts and the national and international significance of our work, we are not getting the support we need. Despite all the evidence to show that what we are doing overcomes disadvantage and deals with the social determinants of alcohol-related harms to reduce them over time, we are not gaining traction with government. This is also despite the ongoing support to our approach that we have from paediatricians, professors and research institutions. We still do not have the long-term security of funding required to enable this work to continue into the future. Bayagawi has no guarantee of funding beyond July 2017. If nothing changes, we will have to close its doors. And this is just a policy gap. By July 2018, the federal government wants to introduce the Jobs for Families childcare package. This legislation has been challenging for us to understand as it proposes to benefit vulnerable families in particular. In fact, it does the opposite. It undercuts vulnerable families. It reduces subsidised access for people earning less than $65,000 per annum. If parents and carers do not work or participate in what the government considers societal activities, then the child is punished by reducing childcare subsidies to 20 hours per fortnight. And for families working full-time, their annual childcare costs per child will be $30,000 after government subsidies. Families using Bayagawi can have many children in care at once, taking their total costs up to $90,000 plus annually. Independent reviews of this package have said that these changes would not be feasible for Bayagawi to implement. Overall, under the Jobs for Families childcare package, Bayagawi would have a $500,000 deficit out of an annual budget of $1.2 million. Our doors would shut, our effective preventative measures would lose investment, we would remain in a state of crisis with no pathway out. We know that government is open to positive negotiations with us, but they have to truly believe that our work has a direct impact on what we all want for Australia. They have to believe in the evidence. Overall, the fact that preventative and responsive measures to societal harms and alcohol-related harms are not seriously invested in by government is a problem that must be and can be overcome in Australian politics. Governmental investments come at the wrong time, when all we do is invest in the present, we perpetuate the crisis. The estimated health and alcohol-related harm bills to our country is around $36 billion annually. We spend $3.3 billion on child protection and out-of-home care. We spend $13.6 billion on those who have been affected by violence. And in 2013-14, the West Australian Department of Corrective Services budgeted the prevention and diversion services was just $7.83 million compared to $46.8 million spent on detention. What this tells us is that we are not investing in a lifetime of learning. We are not investing in equal opportunities across a lifespan. We are not investing in real preventative work. We are not seriously prepared to overcome inequality and put an end to alcohol-related harms. It is a failure of our investment system that we cannot see how the costs outweigh the benefits. It is a failure of the system that targeted investment is not sufficiently informed by the scientific evidence. When we don't properly quantify and qualify the effects of crisis investment over prevention, it's human lives that become expendable. And where prevention initiatives are most needed, like in the Fitzroy Valley, where we are ready to take off, growing from a strong foundation of evidence, funds are being cut back. And our childcare model that would see real change in people's lives is being inappropriately and inadequately absorbed into a mainstream funding package with no consideration of what is actually needed on the ground. Saving Byagawi is not a campaign about additional funding. This is a campaign about how we, as a nation, choose to invest in the future health and well-being of our nation. It is about redistributing our investments to ensure we fund effective prevention that makes a real difference to people's lives. It is about how we include disadvantaged groups in our national narrative of prosperity. The evidence shows that when we reduce inequality, our entire national economy becomes stronger. There is more wealth for more people. Ultimately, it is about how, when we overcome inequality by guaranteeing equal access to essential social services as fundamental building blocks to development, we are, in the long run, reducing all alcohol-related harms. My message to you as a scientific community is this: we need research which focuses on the social determinants of alcoholism, so we have the data and knowledge to support our work, to guarantee investments in prevention models. We have to insist that we work with government to achieve this. The more knowledge we have, the better position we are in to shape effective policies and legislation that meet our needs. This brings me to the Jobs for Families Childcare Package Bill that will go before Parliament in November, in this month. It needs amendment, and we have to insist that no bill like this, which entrenches disadvantage, is passed. Let's unite as a community dedicated to decisions and investments that are informed by the evidence. Let us all insist on investing in our future with the full evidence knowledge that an inclusive, equal society is good for us all. That achieving such a society is the way to combat and overcome all alcohol-related harms. I know this is coming. The evidence points to it. The age of entitlement is coming to an end. Let us all bring forth the age of equality together. Thank you.